Hello, friends. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most volatile and dynamic conjunctions that we can get in astrology. Yes, I'm talking about North Node Rahu conjunct Mars in the sign of Pisces. This conjunction will occur at 8 degrees of Pisces, and it will perfect on the 12th, between 11th and 12th, depending on where you are. And there are some alignments that merely affect our moods, shifts our perspective, but very few can awaken the volatility inside of our soul and in the world. Mars conjunct Rahu is one of them. This is a conjunction where our instinct to act gets possessed by a hunger that goes far beyond our logic. And we have to remember Mars governs our action, force, and the drive that is constantly pushing us to overcome obstacles. Mars wants to push us to move forward towards our goal. Rahu, on the other hand, represents insatiable hunger, insatiable craving, hunger for power, more experiences, getting more of what is in the world of Maya, in the material world. And because of this, Rahu operates in a very unusual way. And that is, Rahu tends to enter the field of another planet, especially when they are in conjunction, and takes hold of the instinct and the function of that planet. It co-opts it to its own service. So when Rahu meets Mars, the hunger for power moves directly into the machinery of actions. This is why this conjunction creates heightened awareness, and we're usually overcome with a heightened sense of urgency. And that means decision-making accelerates, conflicts intensify, and the desire to move forward becomes impossible to restrain. This is why this conjunction deserves special attention, because when hunger starts to direct actions, the result can range from immense undertaking, unusual undertakings, extraordinary ones, to reckless aggression, this unreasonable obsession with victory, and choices that permanently alters the trajectory of our lives and on the global stage, the course of events in history. And to understand why this force is so volatile, this combination, I want us to look at these two forces separately, which is Mars and Rahu, then bring them together and then take him into the sign of Pisces. And before going into the depth of this video, I just want to let you know there'll be plenty of videos coming up in the month of March for all the transits. And the next video will be the conjunction of this retrograde Mercury with Rahu. And I'm going to tie it back into this Mars as well as Jupiter and Saturn. And if you want to catch those videos and a lot more, please do remember to subscribe and press that notification bell so YouTube notifies you. Now, let's get on with first defining Mars. So one of the obvious things, Mars represents our directed force. It gathers all of our energy and then it pushes it towards an objective or an aim. This is why it's been said that Mars is one-pointed. It's one-directional. Mars always has a trajectory of movement. This is also why Mars is considered a dharmic planet. At its best, it moves with a sense of purpose towards a goal, with a sense of direction. It allows us to move decisively through life. It gives us courage, initiative, and Mars has the power to transform matter through its heat, intensity, and combustion. And of course, all of that is because Mars's element is fire. And it's worth remembering, fire spreads. It consumes, it digests, it purifies. It also ignites, penetrates, and burns through things. So again, it's converting matter to heat and motion. And this is why fire is related to forward movement, the element of Mars. It represents the will within us. It's our drive to overcome obstacles. It's what makes us competitive. And it ultimately represents our desire to want to win. In general, Mars wants to break through barriers and anything that might be standing in its way. So when I was telling you, Rahu hijacks the energy of other planets and their quality, Rahu's going to consume, the head of the dragon wants to consume all of these qualities of Mars and make it exponentially bigger towards its own aims. So now let's just go through Rahu briefly to see what its functions are about. And I want us to know that Rahu operates very differently than all the other visible planets. And that's because Rahu doesn't have a body, is the head of the dragon. In the Vedic mythologies, stories, Rahu is a severed head of an asura called Svarbhanu. I talk about that extensively 2 videos back. He drank the nectar of immortality, and right after that sip, Vishnu beheaded him. So when we talk about Rahu North Node, we're talking about the immortal head of a dragon without a stomach. And this image is super important symbolically when you think about it. Because if you don't have a stomach, you always feel hunger. You can never feel full or satiated. There's never any satisfaction. And Rahu in itself, the thing that it wants is power and dominance. Again, if you refer back to that last video, you'll see why Rahu wants power and dominance. I talk about that extensively. I'll just link that video into the description box under this video. And just briefly, Rahu wants power and dominance because it can't digest what it consumes. Like, you get the energy that you need, you can be settled for a few hours till you're hungry and you have to eat again. But if you're not getting the necessary energy for the next moment, you constantly have to consume. So you're going to reach outward for more and more and more. So Rahu is about endless forward movements to consume, to be able to maintain its power. And again, it's important to remember that Rahu is related to the nature of the Asuras, which are the lords of the underworld. The Devas are the lords of the overworld. And the Asuras are masters of illusion. They have the ability to shapeshift, so they can adapt themselves to all kinds of circumstances. And that is to be able to get what it is that they want. This is why when Rahu touches another planet, it becomes that planet, but in an exaggerated and an unstable way, because it's a hologram of that planet. The essence of something and the appearance of something, if they're in alignment, they usually move towards the right actions. But if the essence and the appearance are different, that's when you get a lot of contradiction and volatility. So when Rahu touches Mars, it doesn't just amplify Mars. It possesses Mars to be able to act out its own needs and functions. And its hunger suddenly become Mars's hunger. I'm sure you've been around people who are battery drainers. They consume your energy, you feel drained, now you have to go do something to get your own energy back. And we have to remember, Rahu's hunger is not moderate hunger. It's insatiable hunger, and we're making the god of war feel hungry. So now, with all of that in mind, let's bring Rahu North Node and Mars together as a conjunction to see how they work out. So if Mars represents force and Rahu represents the hunger for power, what you're going to get right off the bat is forceful hunger for power. And as I mentioned earlier, Mars on its own just wants to get to its destination and goal. It gathers its energy to move forward, but there's a sense of clarity. That fire of Mars is also its vision, its ability to see ahead, to move towards its objective. But Rahu itself is a planet that represents smoke, obscurity. Things are not clear. We're talking about a shadow planet, is a mere node of the moon. And not to mention, Rahu doesn't have its own body. So it can't act directly. It doesn't have its own vision per se. It has to enter the field of another planet and hijack the instincts, vision, and function of that planet. And again, it co-opts everything to fulfill its own hunger. So when these two come into conjunction, the force of Mars is there, the courage is still there, but the motivation for the actions change. And the motivation is to fulfill Rahu's craving again. I'm keep hitting on this point because it's very important to remember that Rahu by itself, wherever it's sitting in your chart, by itself is just like a magnifying glass. But the minute it comes into a conjunction with a planet, you get a whole vortex, a wormhole. It just becomes a very strange situation. So when you bring Mars and Rahu, you get this crazy fixation on a target. It narrows our attention. And we can find that we're becoming obsessive with a single objective. And another thing that we might notice, we just get this surge of energy in our bodies too, because Rahu's going to bring that physical intensity that's related to the body, because Mars represents blood circulation, our muscles, the immune system, testosterone. So the body and the nervous system can get hijacked when there's this conjunction. And we got to remember, Mercury is not that far back, which is the nervous system itself. And the point here is that that urge that I need to move forward, I need to get, I need to conquer, becomes so pronounced that we're hijacked by it. It's hard to practice some sort of a restraint. Like this conjunction tells us when people feel compelled to push beyond their limit. Like you will get daredevils who'll jump off a cliff with no parachute. Like the chance of hitting your head and dying is very high, but they are willing to take that risk. The compulsion, the urge is so strong. It makes us risk a lot. It might make us want to confront people that we wouldn't normally confront. Like suddenly you find yourself in a fight and you're not a person who fights. This can also mean decision makings that are aggressive in business, in politics, in our relationships. And of course, the deeper dynamic behind all of this, again, is Rahu's hunger, not Mars's objective. I mean, Mars is a malefic, but when it comes with Rahu, he's the good guy. And with this conjunction, our psyche can become convinced that something needs to be pursued and gotten now, immediately. So we can justify our pursuit and our obsession, why we feel the need to destroy someone, for example. And anything that becomes our obstacle in our way is just intolerable. It needs to be annihilated. And of course, when you become so one-track minded in your mind is polarized. There's only good things and bad things, nothing in between, no gray area. So anything that represents itself as an obstacle, this obsession's like, I need to remove it or correct it. Like with this conjunction, the distinction between determination and obsession are gone. And we have to remember, Mars is a malefic. Mars, by its own nature and instinct, wants to fight. But Rahu's coming in, it's magnifying this quality of Mars. So the drive to overcome resistance, to be productive about it, can easily turn into a drive to want to dominate others. And again, this is forcing us to move beyond the limits, our own limit and other people's limit. So this can turn out to be self-violation or violation of others. And because with this conjunction, conflict can escalate so quickly, healthy competition can turn ruthless. And of course, the need to want to win overrides any other alternative or even the logic of it. Like, I'm gonna win this, which is nothing, but I'm willing to kill the whole world to have this. It's that crazy at its worst. Again, it's my lip gloss. I'm gonna put it down. And another thing that happens with this conjunction, because it's coming to touch compulsion and obsession, there's a feeling of certainty that accompanies it, which makes it very dangerous. Because on a normal day, we'll ask ourselves some question. We'll stop for a minute and be like, is this worth it? What's the payoff for them? What kind of harm am I causing? But when you become from that one-pointedness of Mars, all you see is red. Vision narrows, time narrows, you just can't assess and evaluate. So we'll convince ourselves that I'm acting with clarity. This is just, this is right. But because Rahu's here, we know that there's a lot of deceptiveness, that smoke show that Rahu puts on. And we have to remember what's operating beneath all of this is Rahu's hunger again. It's need for power. And again, when that hunger gets hold of Mars's force, we move with enormous intensity. All we can see is what it is that we need to have, what we need to consume, regardless of its price, and how it's destroying long-term stability. You know, at its best, this conjunction can indicate, because it's keep pushing limits and taking risks, we can have breakthroughs. But on the other side of the coin, we're talking about massive destruction. We have to understand that hunger is moving into the machinery of action. And if we understand that, hey, this is hunger operating in the background, we can maybe pause, maybe bring some restraint to the system. And you know, the way that I'm describing this right now, you might be like, you're talking about like a normal person suddenly becoming a megalomaniac and insane pretty much. But I actually want to take a moment to describe how this can actually happen. I want to describe how Rahu can seduce us and how easily we are led to what I just described. So let me just describe to you how Rahu is seducing the Mars within us, the Mars function in existence. And the seduction of it, the primary seduction, is that all of this force, all of this risk doesn't feel destructive. It makes us feel like we're empowered for the first time in our lives. I'm going to stand up to that person. I'm going to take action over there. I'm going to overcome this once and for all. And that's because the way Rahu magnifies things and amplifies things, there's a surge of energy coming into the system. And that in itself can create a lot of confidence. Like think about the days that you wake up and you feel energized for no reason. There's a sense of confidence in how you're going to carry yourself throughout your day, how you stand, your posture. So that surge of energy can bring this feeling of, I'm confident that I can do this, I can overcome this. So our mind feels sharp, our body feels capable, and our fear about the obstacles around us just disappear because of that confidence. We start to feel invincible. And imagine as a human being where we are in reality quite frail in a lot of ways. Like we can be killed in 100 million ways in an instant. Now imagine feeling nothing can destroy you. So this is seductive. And our action with this conjunction feels justified. That's another form of seduction. Because a lot of times we question ourselves, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right time to do it? But all of that confidence, you're justified. We can actually start to believe that for the first time, I'm seeing the truth of something. I have never been more clear about it. So we can feel ready to confront people that we might have feared. We're ready to break limitations and to force change. Look, all of us want change in some area of life. And in reality, they come in such small increments. Imagine now you're convinced that you can just change something because you are powerful. But of course, none of this is real because it's coming from inflation of Rahu. And that's because Rahu magnifies our perception also. It makes our objective feel important, imminent, inevitable. And Rahu Mars bring this feeling that victory is absolutely necessary. I cannot not win this. I must win. I must be a winner. And of course, when that perception takes over, Mars has been hijacked. Mars is going to now work towards that aim and that goal. And this combo also makes the hunger for power feel like certainty and if it's our destiny. If you look at history and the humans who felt that they had a destiny, they have done the impossible and they have violated, killed, and destroyed more than any other human being in history. And when you get that kind of certainty, and this is a matter of destiny, it's very hard to break that momentum. It's an obsession. It's a soul urge suddenly. This is why it's important to understand the surges that we're getting within ourselves, how we're being seduced by Rahu, the seduction for power itself. Now, I want us to bring this conjunction into the soft, beautiful, watery sign of Pisces. Surely, it must calm it down a little bit, maybe. Let's get into it. So everything that I said about the conjunction of Rahu and Mars, it's always going to have its own flavor based on the sign that it's going to be playing itself in. And here Pisces is hosting this conjunction. And we have to remember Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac, is talking about an end of a cycle. It's a field where structures soften, boundaries can get blurred, and it can be dissolved. Things can actually intermingle, and the differentiation between them becomes very hard to tell apart, such as thoughts and emotions, imagination and intuition, reality and fantasy. Everything is just intermingling without differentiation. Like some signs indicate precision and control. Pisces is dissolving all kinds of edges. It makes things unclear, not distinct, not individuated. So that means Mars and Rahu are not operating in a field that's solid. It's fluid. It's made of water. It's the element of water. So everything moving through this field is fluid and it's always shifting. And this is exactly why Mars generally suffers in water signs. And Pisces is a water sign because Mars just wants a clear target. Like, this is point A, that's point B, that's the trajectory. I just move that way. Everything in water is like fluctuating and shifting. So it's a moving target all the time. So Pisces is not allowing us to have a clear opponent, a defined obstacle that we need to overcome. The fight becomes very abstract. It's about abstractions. And we have to think about it. This is a water sign, a feminine sign, so it has a lot to do with feelings. So it's also pushing Mars towards feeling things. We don't want the god of war to feel things. Because once when your feeling changes, your vision changes. Your beliefs now have to come into play, your ideologies, and this is Jupiter sign, so it does have to do with these things. And we have to remember Rahu is just lurking around, trying to hijack Mars at the same time. But since Rahu doesn't have a defined objective, We have to understand Rahu's going to do what it got. It's going to just take on this Mars, co-opt this Mars. So this translates to us suddenly feeling this urge that I need to fight for an ideal, for an idea. I need to defend my beliefs. I need to pursue redemption. I need to correct all of these perceived injustices against me. It's becoming abstract, it's ideological, right? Like it's kind of like the war going on right now. What is the end point? What is the objective? Don't know, but it's an ideological war. But what is the actual material, tangible aspect of this war? What's the objective? We can have the same themes play out in our own personal lives. And because the feelings are getting triggered here in the sign of Pisces, the motivation behind it or perceived motivation can feel deeply personal, deeply meaningful. This is a sense that I'm acting for something way bigger than myself. Like I'm acting on behalf of this idea and ideal. But we have to remember Pisces introducing a crucial complication here, which is Pisces blurs the distinction between perception and projection. It blurs the lines between reality and fantasy. And that means in the sign of Pisces, emotion, memories, fantasies, and spiritual aspiration, religious aspirations, they can all get mixed into one thing. And it's hard to determine which signal is coming from reality and which is of our imagination. So now when we put Mars and Rahu here, when they have to operate inside of this kind of environment, actions can start to be guided by images and ideals rather than facts. So good luck, for example, getting the truth out of your news. And beyond that, what that can do, it can create this feeling that we're absolutely convinced that we're pursuing truth, justice, and there's a bigger spiritual purpose behind what we're doing. But we have to realize we might be acting towards an internal narrative that only has the appearance of reality. But when you go in there, the dots don't connect. So when you get Mars and Rahu in Pisces, you can find people who are fighting very hard for something. But later, it proves to be a misunderstanding. And what I mean by this is that the aggression is real, the conviction is real, but the objective that we're pursuing is just constructed by emotions, by beliefs, fantasies, rather than facts and objective truth. So we can see conflicts here that are moralized and spiritualized. They're made to be larger than life for reasons beyond the immediate, which when you actually take a step back and look at it, you're like, these reasons aren't even connected to reality. That said, once the interpretations take hold, the intensity of Mars and Rahu will drive us. And it's going to drive us to defend with enormous amount of force what our position is, what our stance is, and why what we're doing is justified. And again, we have to remember this is not just some simple aggression. It's force moving through an environment where things are constantly shifting. The boundary between reality and fantasy is blurred. And that means instead of fighting for an end, for a defined victory, the target and the ends are just elusive. They're non-existent. So just imagine how drained one can become. In the case of nations, how drained of resources that they can become. And honestly, I just hope that we have the ability to recognize this, whether if it's happening in our lives or we're a witness to it right now on the world stage, that there is no clear destination for the kinds of fights that Rahu and Mars will bring to the forefront, especially in the sign of Pisces. That means fights without an end. And anyone in the right mind knows that you cannot fight without an objective, without an endpoint. A good example of this, family dynamics. Because with other people, we meet other people, we're in a state of conflict with them, we bring it to an end. We say this friendship's over. But sometimes with our families, we feel obliged to stay. And it's an endless war for another 50, 60, 70 years, which is insane. Everyone's drained, everyone's scarred, and there's still no endpoint. All of that said, we cannot leave the video here. That is not what I do here. We're going to walk through how to work with this energy. And let's start here because this conjunction releases enormous amount of power. The most important thing during this transit, for us at least personally, because we haven't lost our mind like everything that's happening in the world, we're going to have awareness. And the awareness comes from this, as I was explaining earlier. This conjunction doesn't start with chaos. It begins with a surge of having a sense of urgency. And it's that urgency that starts a trajectory and sets a certain momentum. And we have to understand when this momentum takes its own speed and its own life, it's going to be very hard to stop it. So the first thing, let's become aware of that sense of urgency to act towards something. We also have to pay attention to situations that suddenly feel intolerable. You've been tolerating it for the past, 5 months. Today you wake up and you're like, I can no longer do this. Your entire being's hijacked by that feeling. Pay attention to that. Situations where suddenly it's demanding of you to have a sudden action, reaction, make a decision now. Be aware of that. Be aware of things that are suddenly coming on your path to confront you. These are the setup moments. And the first step is to recognize these. I just want you to know that sense of urgency is you being hijacked by Mars and Rahu. The planets in Vedic astrology are called grahas. They are the grabbers. They can seize you. So be aware that you are being seized because you are suddenly overcome by this surge, this urgency. And we have to remember Mars's instinct, that Mars is instinct within us, is to move and to act right away. And on a normal day, maybe this wouldn't be so bad, but we have to remember Rahu is here. So that speed to our action can actually become something dangerous. This is a time for us to muster up all of our discipline and be a willing participant to deliberately apply some restraint. This time will pass. It's not forever. We have to be able to pause long enough, just long enough, to question the impulse that we feel. And I talked about this in that Saturn and Aries videos, a few videos now. Saturn's giving us the ability to pause. Mind you though, it's going to be really hard because Mars is not in the best of situations, neither is Saturn with that debilitation. That's why I'm saying we have to gather everything we have within us to practice some discipline. This is the only way for us to know, do I release my force in this direction at this moment or not? We should ask ourselves, is this sense of urgency absolutely necessary? Like if I don't act on it, everything will fall apart because that urgency is a distortion of Rahu. It's the way that it's trying to seduce us, compel us. And the third step is for us to redirect our force into something productive. Because if we're seized by it and it's all there, like, I don't know, I'm getting an image of someone who feels super confident, super energetic, ready to go, and they're just sitting on a couch. You just want to die. So maybe you do need to act towards something, but it's good to be mindful of where am I taking this energy and force. And we have to remember, Mars actually wants to achieve a goal. Mars doesn't have to always just fight against something. Mars can fight for something. So if we understand how to work with this Mars, it's understanding where to exert our energy. Let me put my effort towards something that challenges me, but it's helping my growth process. So it's you actually co-opting this energy for your own end. And honestly, on any condition, this is the way to deal with that malefic energy of Mars. It's the way to stabilize Mars's energy. Give it an aim, give it something challenging to do. And on a normal day too, when we don't know how to harness this energy of Mars, this is how we become accident and injury prone. We just got to know how to harness this energy at the right time and the right thing. But if this energy remains without a direction, rest assured that the system will begin to look for confrontations and for extremes. In general, when we choose our struggles consciously, especially with such a conjunction, it can produce remarkable strength and the ability to achieve one's goals. And now we're getting to the end of this video. And before closing, I'd like to ask you to like, subscribe, share, and please do comment. As I've said in other videos, I have tremendous interest in researching the nodes. They're absolutely fascinating. So let me know how you're planning to deal with this energy, how you're experiencing this energy. And if you have this in your birth chart, please do let me know how you've been negotiating, grappling with this. You're a force of nature, but I want to know, have you been able to harness it? How have you done it? Let me know. And if you want a reading of this transit or to understand the depth of your birth chart, why you do what you do. Why have you had the experiences that you have? Where is it taking you? All of that is in your birth chart. For a reading of that, you can go to my website for more information at parisayazdi.com, or you can just go to my email in the description box below and I can give you all the information. And also, you can go to my website for related articles to the videos, and they always come with self-reflective questions so you can understand the depth of these transits and the way that it's touching your life and the way that it's unfolding for you. And now to close. To state the obvious, this is not a gentle combination. It's releasing raw power that can push us towards extremes. Under this influence, courage can become extraordinary. We might feel like we can confront things that we never could in the past. But at the same time, this energy can push our mind towards obsession, aggression, destruction, and escalation of conflict that doesn't need to go to that level. And that's because what's being initiated here, what's being awakened here is not simple motivation. Hunger is entering into this and is determining actions. And we have to remember, when hunger becomes the directive, the directing force, everything can start to move towards an outcome that is very hard to undo later. Like if you're hungry, if your family's hungry, let's just take it to the basics, and you're watching your child just deteriorating, wasting away, you will not hesitate to do a lot of things to make sure that your family's fed. So when hunger comes into the equation, we do things that we normally would not do. And with this transit, like all other transits, the point is not to suppress things, to repress them. And especially with this one, it's impossible because it's so powerful and forceful. But the point is to recognize it for what it is. And I say that because the moment that we see the hunger clearly behind everything, and hunger here can also represent greed. So take it in a metaphorical sense too, as a descriptive way of describing a lot of things. When we can see it clearly, is that we don't let our action become these automatic reactions that are justified. We don't give ourselves a free license to violate. Force becomes something that we guide. It's not something that can seize us and bully us and hijack us, co-opt us to its own end. And when we have that kind of awareness, the volatility of Mars and Rahu can actually become a catalyst for transformation rather than the chaos that they can bring. And to close this video, to end it, I like to actually express two wishes. One that is for our own personal selves, and the other one on a collective level, considering what the hell is happening in the world. And my wish for us during this transit is, when the surge of agency rises within us, I hope we see it and recognize it for what it is. I hope we pause long enough to see it. I hope that we see that we are already whole, and the hunger that's trying to drive us is actually an illusion. I hope that our actions come from clarity rather than desperation, and that we're the one who guide our strength and our power, instead of letting some other external force to take over us. And now for the collective wish. My wish for the world is that at a time when conflicts are escalating across nations, the force of power and aggression are met with restraint and wisdom, that leaders and societies recognize how quickly force can spiral once it's unleashed, and that courage has to be used to prevent destruction rather than accelerate it. That's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.